Hi YouTube, thanks for checking out episode 3 of Let's Build a Real App. In this episode, we're going to do a event service bus. What does that mean? That's a way of decoupling communication between parts of your app. So it comes onto this generic channel, which means that you can listen to other stuff, and parts of a application which are not connected to each other, being on different pages, can easily communicate to each other. So that is an event service bus. And we're going to add one of those into the project today and connect it into the side nav so it changes some of the behavior. If that interests you, watch along. Let's get into it. As you can see, this is going to be a side nav, and this is basically going to be an additional nav. And if I click, oh yeah, it's not turning off. No, because I don't have I've got the backdrop turned off, so it does not auto close. Okay, so that means that the next step is to put some behavior on these menus to make them come and go. Now, that can be relatively straightforward. We can put some buttons to open and close some stuff. We have some buttons here on the main one, so we might bind to there. And sometimes you'll take like a button here, and I want to put this detail, as we were mentioning, with this right tab. So to do that, I want this component to be able to talk to this component. And then the way I normally would do that is on this particular page that I will then use an event bus. So this is I will add a new folder and I will call it services. These services can then be reused lots of places. Create a new file, and I'll call it event bus, event message bus. This is primarily used to just send messages between components. .service, .typescript, and then here I will export class, and then it will be called event service bus. Okay. And then I will make this an injectable. Boom. And then will that auto import? I used to have a okay, let's just write. Oh, there we go. It's already there. So what's wrong? It's not assignable. So let's just put a constructor in here. Don't really need a constructor yet. I'm not really doing anything, but I like to add one. Okay, so after adding a constructor, the next thing I'm going to add is, maybe jump through this a little quickly, but I'm going to add a something that allows you to send a message to it, and for it to then send that message to other people, so you can subscribe to the message bus so you can receive the bus. In Angular we use RX. We use subjects, observable subjects. So subjects, observable. Okay, so observable tutorial for beginners. So if you want to know a little bit more about that, you can subscribe to a whole bunch of stuff. The examples that are here. If you want more on that, it's probably a little beginner for this exact video. But what we basically want is I will define a public. So this, let's say that this is, I want to subscribe for message. Sometimes you do like a one message bus, which is a generic message, and then everyone listens to that. And then you're doing a selection based on the type of message. Now that can be beneficial if you're not sure where it's going to get used, so you can just start pushing stuff onto this event bus and other people can subscribe later. But for now, I like to have them separated out, so I know when I'm sending a message to the footer, I'm actually just talking to the footer. Sometimes I have a generic message bus too, but let's just say it's going to be the and nav subject, and that's going to be a new subject. Okay. So you normally then have to cast that subject. So what I'm going to say for now is just that it's an any, because I may actually want to send some information later. So does that. Oops. Save. Why isn't that fixing my auto imports? Okay. So it's not fixing my auto imports, so I'm going to import subject from RxJS subject. I'm also going to import observable from RxJS observable. And why am I doing that is because they're used in combination of each other. So I have a subject, and then I will create a observable. Is generally what I'm doing. A subject. So what I'll normally do is I'll take this and then just design pattern. I normally add a $sign at the end as a pattern, which tells me that this is an observable. I'll do this dot and subject dot as observable. Okay, and oops, what did I do? I clicked off. Didn't mean to. Is observable. So that now gives me a subject, an observable for this given subject, which should now allow things to talk to it. So the next thing that I would do is I would event. I don't want to call it event. Okay, so an event normally doesn't emit. So let's say event and subject and nav. Okay, and that's going to take data, which is an any for now, because we're just getting this working, and that will then do this dot and nav subject dot next data. So what that does is if you call event and data and you call it with information, it will then call this subject and it will push this data onto this subject. This subject has got no default behavior and no persistence, so you have to be listening to this subject here, this observable, and then when that happens, if you're listening to that observable and someone calls that event, that message will then be delivered to you as you're actively there. So my footer, or sorry, not my footer, my end nav will subscribe to this, and when I send an event, it will then do a behavior. Okay. For now, I'll probably just send a Boolean, but in the future, I probably want to send some more information, which I can then retrieve information, some more information, retrieve information, blah. So what I can do is I can pass a record ID and then do a lookup and have a component in there which has a summary of that data, and I'll say I want to show this in that menu, and then I can render different components. Okay. All right, so let's just do that. What's wrong here? So I TypeScript is a little off. I'll fix it for a future video. I've been playing with my Visual Studio and I don't think I've got everything set up the way I like it. So let's okay. So it's saying cannot find subject. So if I just pull both out from RxJS, will that stop complaining? Yes. So what is wrong with okay, gonna have to look at this. Angular injectable. What's wrong here? So I have an injectable service. Injector create. Okay. So let's just see if there's any more warnings. Seems to be okay. It doesn't look too different to what I see here. Got a class. I'm also exporting that class. Okay. Error. Provided in. Missing type but required. Platform. Okay, so now I need to plug it in. So I'm going to go into my app module. I'm going to import the event message bus from the services event bus. Okay, so I will add this to the provider. Event bus. So now it's imported into here. There's no, so what did I call it? Event message bus. No, that's why it's wrong. Event message bus. Should be matching the name. Event message bus. Should say service. Message bus service. And then I'll come back to my app. I shall change the name. And I shall update the name in the provider. Excuse me. So that now should enable this to work. Okay, so if I come back in, normally I would push the components. I wouldn't normally code this directly in this HTML, but we will go through that. So in here, I will want to import message bus, event message bus. Oops. From the services message bus. Okay, and I will inject that into here. Private message service bus. message bus. Okay. So now we have it. Now he has an event message bus. The next thing that we will need is we will need to subscribe to that message bus, so I can trigger the behavior to change these parameters, for example. Now I also want to manage these. I like to manage them in every component. This is the top level component, so it's unlikely this component's going to be destroyed or recreated because it's here, the entire application. But either way, I still like to create a subs array. And then what I like to do is on init. So I normally add a lifecycle event implements on init. Okay. Quick fix. Add it in. Quick fix. Implement. Okay, so now we should have a on init here. Let's just put down here. And what happens when the init when this is initiated, which is a little bit different to constructed, which is later in the life cycle. You would normally do on init and on destroy to manage the subscriptions. So we'll just go through that now. But on init, I generally will then do remove this file, do this dot subs dot push, this dot event message bus dot nav subject dot subscribe, and some functionality here. So this should subscribe with some data, and then we will do some stuff with the data. So let's put that there, and I normally would separate that into multi-line so I can do some code. And just tidy it up a little bit. Okay, so that's the end of the subscribe, and then that's the end of the push. Does not exist. Oh, sorry, this is the subs. I don't know what happened there. So this array of subs. So I'm registering the subscription, which is going to be stored here in case I want to cancel that subscription for some reason, which you would do in lower components that get created and destroyed. Okay, so now I'm listening to this, and when I receive this event, I'm just going to ignore it for now, but what I will do is I will say that when I receive an event, that if true equals 1, 2, 3 equals data, because I'll just push that through, then we will do this dot and nav opened equals true. Else, if, because it's an any, we don't know what else it could be, so let's say if it is false, then we will true equals false. Do you see me? If the false. And if I receive something else, I want to know about it. I'll do console.error. And just for now, unexpected. Expected sub value, and I'm gonna put the data in. Okay, so that I'm now listening to this subject, and if this subject gets executed, it will then change these variables. Okay, so the next thing I will do is I will do a toggle and nav function, which is basically the same thing, and it will say this dot and nav opened equals and not the current and nav opened. That will just change the variable. And I will bind that now in pepper. So let's bind this to the click, and it's an outgoing event, so it's the circle brackets equals toggle. So now if I click that, that should turn that menu off and on. And if I if I click this one, it should we'll add another method in. Boom. This be inside that tag. So, oops. Autocomplete too much for me. Alright, so let's call this one toggle. Let's call this one open bus. And we shall call this one and bus. Okay, so let's say open bus, open and bus, and close and bus. Now, because it's a service, I can do this in other places too. Alright, so we jump back into here, open and bus, and close and bus. Okay, so what I want to do here is I have the event bus, so I actually want to and then I want to call it the what do we call it, event. So I'm going to event, so when I want open, I want it to be true, and when it's closed, I want it to be false. False. There. Okay, so I've now created a service bus. Alright, what's wrong here? Type decorator. Have a service. Just to subscribe. Ah, I know it's my mistake. I've done the old way. I believe I should change that to be provided in right, and I should take it out of the modules. The modules was an earlier approach, and sometimes you just get in the habit to do the old way. So now, if I'm expecting this to work. I'm waiting for this to build. Alright, so that's a bit better. So now I have the toggle, which will turn it off and on. The initial state doesn't look 100% correct, so but we will come back to that. So there you go. You can see that this is over, and so it's coming across. And then we also have open bus and end bus. So these ones are using the service bus to set it across, and this is using the toggle. Now these could be used anywhere realistically. Let's jump into the home page. So if you look at the app component, you'll see that we basically import it. So now if I come to the home page, import message bus, it will be up a couple of directories there. Up directory, not just one directory. Okay, and then I'll just copy the message bus. I like to keep the name consistent in all my services, so I can jump basically from service to component to component, and know all my services, as in this name that I call it, is the same in each one. And now if I so we don't need to subscribe because that's about listening and doing the outcome. So what we might want to do is do these two functions, which will send it. So we will obviously add these in here. Okay, so now I have an open bus and an end bus. Got an extra. And now I will go into my buttons, map buttons, and I combined the click event here and say, oops, and say open bus, and then we'll change this to open. And we shall change this to close and close. Okay, so that should work fine now. So if I end that bus, you'll see here, and if I click open, it will be open. Unfortunately, I can't get to the close. Maybe if I change it to responsive, and I have to open, and still see the close. Let's actually just drop the size of this a sec. So inspect and change this drawer here from 55 to 35. 35%. That looks a bit better. It's not taking effect now. Let's just change the style. Yeah, from 55, which is way too big. Let's change it to 35, so it's noticeably different. Okay, so now I can close it and open it. So that's pretty handy. Where I take something here. And this could be, more information. It could be a little icon. It could be anything where I can get the context of this button, and I can pass that through. So right now we're just passing a Boolean through, but it could be an ID. It could be a JSON object, and then we could be processing it either way. So we now have a side nav menu, which I haven't actually turned that one on or off. But what I really wanted to get done was having toggleable side menus. Yeah, I could repeat the same process for the first nav bar of having this the end subject, and I don't see the value in doing a video of that, but I'll probably do that after the next video. So we will be able to do open start bus and open end bus as well, and triggers each menu. Normally there's like a hamburger menu button up here that you'll click, and that will bring the menu out. Okay, well, I think that has been a good coverage. I have got what I said I would get done, which is two side navs, one being the primary navigation menu, and the other one being more the secondary menu, which is a design choice that I'm making. You don't have to have two side menus, you don't have to have any side menus, but as you can see, I've got the material UI components in, and I have them functionally working between them. Now, I like to have a skeleton version of my application, just a rough functionality working before I start to get really involved in the UX UI experience. And I like to have, you know, my message buses, some side navs, and some of the main data retrieval working, so I know that the functionality of the application is generally working before we dive into the aesthetics. So I hope you've enjoyed this. There will be continuing in the series next week, where we will build more components. I'm not 100% certain what that is at this exact moment, so you'll have to join me next week and find out what that is. I hope this is beneficial, and you get to see me work through some of the issues. And this app is going on the App Store, so yeah, you can always check it out later. Thanks for watching. I'm Darren Ruggin. Hit me up in the comments below or on the socials. Have a fantastic day. Thanks for watching.
Can I launch products on the internet that make money? You'll have to follow me to find out. Then hit the subscribe button and join me on my journey.